Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Awesome.
Yes.
I'm in my office, so I'm not used to this screen. It feels kind of odd, actually, but we are phasing in academic affairs, and we will start being here, two of us at a time in this space, starting next week is our current plan. Actually, this week. I'm not supposed to, we're actually not starting that until tomorrow, but I wanted to start out with just a couple of comments and introductions, and Darren's going to run our slides for us. This is the academic affairs staff and graduate school and library town hall meeting. Of course, many of you are joining us because you can't make your own town hall, and we completely understand that. We will have Dean's updates from the relevant areas, our co-hosts, however, in just a few minutes. I wanted to start by reiterating that we have been in a really challenging time, as you all know, and certainly we don't need to go into the details of that. When we had the last town hall, we talked about how this was an unprecedented historical time, and that certainly has not changed. If anything, it has accelerated. Certainly the events of this weekend have demonstrated that our society has a tremendous amount of work to do. COVID-19 has accelerated challenges that we already had in the system and highlighted the inequities of our society and our culture. It's certainly the role of higher education to address those inequities, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we will do that at ISU here in a few minutes. But I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the successes that we did have in the spring term and celebrate those, even though we didn't have the opportunity to celebrate in a more formal way. We conferred more than 2,000 degrees under pretty significantly difficult circumstances. It's really a testament to all of you and to our faculty that we were able to do that. The term was successfully completed for almost all students, with some exceptions, of course, for licensure requirements and face-to-face courses, and those are completing now. We actually, at Idaho State University, saved lives in Bannock County and in our other communities by choosing to stay home, by closing our campus early, and by prohibiting travel. By doing that, we made a tremendous difference in terms of community spread of the pandemic. And really, that's a testament to the sacrifices that you all made to make that possible. And certainly it made a difference, and we know because we are the largest employer in Bannock County, and our leadership on that issue has made a great deal of difference in Southeast Idaho, but also statewide. And in addition to these accomplishments, we also came together as a university to address these difficult times, to move our courses online, and to prepare for planning for a unique fall term. And we'll talk about the details of that in a bit. But I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to celebrate those accomplishments, but also to talk about some of the things that we know we need to do as a community and as a culture. As I said, these have been difficult days for the United States of America. This was not a good weekend in the US. And as a historian, I can tell you that we have not had the type of demonstrations that we've had over the weekend since 1968. So it's been a generation since we had the kind of protests that we're seeing this weekend. Those are, of course, the voice of the unheard, and it's a reminder and a call to action for those of us in higher ed to address the things that we know we can impact. We are purveyors of opportunity, but we haven't always done a good job with making that opportunity equitable for all. We know we have work to do to address equity gaps in the success of our students, to address equity gaps in our own employees. And as a result, Kevin and I and the leadership team are looking at opportunities to address those issues directly. Some of that you'll hear about when we talk about preparing for the fall term. We are, for example, going to be ordering additional Chromebooks for student use so that we can help address what we know is a technological gap in our student population. We will continue to ensure the expansion of Wi-Fi campus-wide to address what we know is a gap in student access that COVID and our move to a distance format highlighted. We will talk a lot about the schedule here in a few minutes, but I wanted to say just a few things about it right now. The fall schedule will have some changes in it so that we can manage our social distancing requirements, but also to address the need that has been highlighted that our schedule must be student-centric. We must work very hard to ensure that our schedule is not itself a barrier for any of our students, but certainly not for students who are unaware of our processes or intimidated by the process of registration, of course, but also that we are providing opportunities in the schedule for a wide variety of student need. We will be working on expanding, and we've talked about this in some communications that have gone out, but expanding opportunities for faculty to increase their distance delivery skills. Those opportunities are available through the ITRC, and certainly we can get you more information if you want details about that. And then we will also be launching, as many of you know, a program prioritization process beginning for the majority of the campus starting in the fall and ending in January of 2021. As part of that, we will be looking at the effectiveness of our programs based on data metrics that the Faculty Senate Subcommittee and the Faculty Senate worked very hard on over the past year. As part of that mix, we need to also look at how our programs are doing in terms of equity measures, how we are doing campus-wide, in terms of how all of our students are succeeding, and if we do have equity gaps, how we will address those at the program level. And with that, I am ready to move to our co-sponsors updates. Sandy and Adam are on the call, and they both have updates from the library and the graduate school. So we'll start with Sandy.
All right, thank you, Laura. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the leadership of the university for issuing a statement that just recently went out about that Laura was referring to. I agree that it's higher ed's role to promote unity and improvement. I will speak about the library. The library continues to provide the services that you've all grown accustomed to. For us, life did not change when the spring semester let out. We continue to offer online reference and chat. If you've been to our homepage, you'll see a little chat that creeps across the screen the minute you go there, and it has been very effective, and we've heard from a lot of you that way. We also continue with interlibrary loan, both borrowing and lending, and we are seeing that other universities that is starting to come back for them too. We also have been delivering books upon request in some way, either delivered by hand to the front door of the building or through the US mail. Either way is no cost to you. And lastly, of course, our digital collections remain accessible to all of you. Additionally, I'm very pleased to report that the Leadership Council and the Administrative Council have approved the support of inflationary increases for the library for the coming year. So we are facing no mandated cuts for our journals, and that's a very welcome situation for the library. We continue to watch our subscriptions and make sure that they are what faculty feel is necessary for support of classes and research. And we will be swapping a few out over the summer, but that is a voluntary action that we're taking on the part of between the library and certain faculty members. But we're having no mandated cuts, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm happy to take questions when the opportunity for questions comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. And thank you for all the things that the library has done under your leadership and your team to meet the needs of our faculty and staff during this time. I've heard a lot of very positive comments from faculty, so I appreciate the hard work in the faculty in the library to make that happen. All right, Adam, grad school.
Hi, everyone. Good to be with you this afternoon. I'll just give you a brief update on a few things happening in the graduate school. Before I do that, though, I would like to echo one of the things that Laura said in her introduction, and that is just how proud and grateful I am of the students and of the faculty that have worked so hard to pull off a successful semester despite the difficulties that we all faced. I've heard from a number of students about their experiences, and in particular, many of them mentioned just sort of what they felt like were kind of heroic efforts on the part of the faculty to help them continue to make progress in their graduate research, so that they could make their way towards degrees and feel supported in their goals. And I just wanted to let you know that if you haven't heard it from the students directly, your efforts make a real impact in their experience and in their lives. And they've been quick to testify of that to my office. And I'm really grateful for that. I know that it matters to them and it means a lot. I wanted to sort of make you aware, we recently pushed out a survey to the graduate students, and it was really interesting, the responses that we received from them. And the two things that they talked about needing help with the most during this time period were things that could ameliorate feelings of social isolation. They were feeling a lot of social isolation. And then they were experiencing, a number of them were experiencing difficult financial circumstances as a result of, the COVID-19 and having partners and spouses and others that lost hours or lost jobs, or some of our graduate students lost jobs as well. So we've been working hard to try to help students with those feelings of social isolation, as well as to attend to their sort of emergency financial needs. We've hosted a couple of different social opportunities for graduate students to gather. We even had a karaoke night, and we won't say much more about that because what happens at karaoke night stays at karaoke night. There's no video evidence. We don't talk about this. There's some rumor that the dean participated. We can neither confirm nor deny that. But we've had a good time trying to bring students together and help them feel like they're still connected to our community. In addition to that, we were able to give about 60 mini grants to students, providing emergency financial aid to them. We're in the process of doing that. We awarded them on Friday, and we're in the process of working through paying out to those students those funds. So we're doing our best in the graduate school to try to attend to the needs of the graduate students during this time. We're now starting to turn our focus a little bit towards fall semester. We're hearing from a number of international students who are concerned about receiving visas and other things, and actually being on campus. And we're working on sort of remote possibilities to try to help those students be able to make, to join us, even if only virtually, and make some progress. So we're hard at work trying to attend to the needs of those students. We also were very lucky to receive, through the budget process, the Admin Council and Leadership Council voted to increase the number of GA ships the institution will enjoy starting fall of 2021. So we're looking forward to working out how that's going to be implemented, but looks like we'll probably have some additional support and be able to bring on some additional funded graduate students at that point in time. So that was very good news and very appreciated by the graduate school and the graduate student population. So that's my update, and I'm again happy to answer any questions when the time's right.
Thank you, Adam. So I wanted to talk a little bit about fall. I know that you all have a lot of questions about how fall will look, what we are planning to do for fall. Of course, Kevin has come out with videos, and we also have a rebound plan that has been posted. We are planning for a face-to-face start in the fall, but there will be changes in how we handle the actual course schedule. And I wanted to give you two links, the rebound plan link and the university committees link. These are the committees that are working on the various aspects of our fall start, including work with the community in our regions and work with our students. There is a student group and an instruction group, and also a group that's looking at how to handle health and safety issues around our start in the fall. Next slide, thanks, Darren. So I wanted to focus primarily on the instruction working group because that impacts academic affairs to the greatest extent. And we are working really hard in that group. That group is chaired by Blake Beck, is its operational chair, and Joanne and Lyle are co-chairs. I think they are all joining us in this meeting, so they may be able to answer questions that you have. But I wanted to talk about their work and what they are doing and what you can expect to see in the fall. Beginning with the fact that we are evaluating every classroom space on campus to make sure that we understand what its capacity can be based on the CDC guidelines that we are working with now, including social distancing for our course sections. Next slide, Darren. So in terms of how we are managing the course schedule, we are looking at these principles. First and second year courses will be prioritized for face-to-face delivery. And that's because we want to make sure that our incoming new students have an opportunity to have a face-to-face experience. So we are prioritizing those sections for the process that we're using to move sections into larger spaces. We are using a 6 feet of distancing standard for social distancing. This is the CDC recommendation, of course, that we've been dealing with all spring, and we are maintaining it here because we are using the CDC guidelines to ensure safety in the classroom. All spaces on campus will be prioritized for instruction. That doesn't mean that we'll use all spaces on campus for instruction, but it may mean that some of our classrooms will be meeting in the ballroom or perhaps the Bengal Theater, for example. And we are allowing those spaces to be part of the fall scheduling process, and some of our courses will move into spaces in the student union and elsewhere on campus. And then finally, technology will be purchased. We're purchasing additional technology. I mentioned a little bit about this earlier in terms of student access, purchasing additional Chromebooks for students. We are also purchasing laptops for faculty. and cameras of various sorts for classrooms so that we can handle additional high flex opportunities in those classrooms. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a moment. But you will be seeing changes to classrooms, additional cameras, and then also additional technology of all sorts in our classroom spaces. And also some changes to the structure of our classroom spaces. We'll be blocking off seats and moving tables where applicable. Next slide. So one of the things that we will need to do in order to implement the changes to the schedule is that we will need to freeze the schedule for 3 weeks while we evaluate the lists that are coming from each college related to the course scheduling in the colleges and the needs of those schedules. We will move some courses, as I said, based on distancing requirements. So if the course is a first or second year course and it is not in a space big enough to accommodate social distancing, we will move it into a space that is and maintain the same time period so that we're not interfering with student schedules. One of the challenges that we have, of course, is that students are already registered. Many of them are already registered for fall, and one of our goals is to limit the changes to their schedule. So we may end up not changing the time, but changing the space. And then consider all large spaces on campus for instruction. And then we are working with facilities to manage the capacity information for our classrooms. Some of that has already been completed. That work is ongoing and will continue for the next couple of weeks. I can give you some examples though. The planetarium is a space that we've used for large lecture sections. With our new evaluation based on a 6-foot social distancing standard, that room will seat 41 students in the fall term. So this is going to mean that we will be scheduling, in some cases, more than one section of the same course at the same time in different large spaces. Next slide. There is a memo related to this that was approved by Admin Council, and it outlines much of this work. It's been posted to the Academic Affairs website, and that link is active. We will post these slides as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about what does high flex mean, because we're using a number of different types of classroom delivery to manage the schedule in the fall. We certainly will look at any course that is currently online and leave it online, of course. And we've taken those out, that there are about 600 plus of those sections. We have right now somewhere around 5,000 sections for fall. That does not include early college, and those sections will be scheduled as we go forward in the high schools. We are working with the school districts on what those will look like. So those are not part of this analysis currently. We're looking only at the sections that we are running on our own campuses for now as part of this exercise. If the course is a dissertation or thesis or independent study, we are leaving it as is with the expectation that the faculty member will work with that student or students if there is more than one. Usually those are under 3. So any course that was under 3, we are taking out of this analysis as well. And then, of course, we are allowing exceptions for CTE courses and health science courses and other face-to-face courses that simply cannot be socially distanced, or that this capacity analysis cannot apply to. Examples of those include physical therapy, clinical environments where they're just not going to be 6 feet apart from each other. But that means that they need to have a health plan that is approved by our health committee, and those exceptions will go through the health plan process. And after that, we will look at every section that's on the books, and that's what the committee is currently in the process of doing, and look at every space on campus and move, as I said, classrooms that are currently not in a big enough space that are face-to-face in the first and second year to bigger classrooms. And from there, we will move to the next option, which is high flex. And that is a situation where the course is split between some of the students being face-to-face on one of the days and some of the students being online on that same day. And then it switches back and forth so that students do get in that class a face-to-face opportunity, but only 50% of the time. It allows us to manage our footprint more effectively. And in most cases, we expect those will be upper division courses, and probably a majority of our upper division courses will end up with a high flex option. But we're working with colleges right now on identifying which courses the high flex model will apply to. And with that, I can take any questions about the plan for fall, which of course much more information will be forthcoming regarding the scheduling once our team has completed this effort. And also any of the questions for library or grad school or anything else that you want to talk about. And Ginny, do you want to talk about the process for asking a question?
Great, thanks, Laura. So if you'd like to ask a question, you have two options. You can go to your chat feature and ask everyone publicly, or you can ask just me. And I've included some instructions on how to do that. You'll just want to make sure that my name is the one that's selected. And if you do that, your question will be asked anonymously. And I also wanted to remind you that we are recording this for anyone who was unable to attend today. And all of our upcoming town hall meetings will be available on isu.edu/townhall. And I'll include that link as well.
Thank you, Ginny. And thank you for all of your hard work in being our moderator for these.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. Okay, first question, Laura. Can you talk more about the health committee and how does it decide? How does it decide upon exceptions?
Yes, we do have a group, a health group that is looking at those requests, and essentially what they're doing is analyzing the proposal that comes from the unit that's proposing to have proposing that they must have an exception, and academic affairs is approving those. Most of the time, these are CTE courses or health science courses or something that simply cannot be managed in a social distancing environment, and then they need a health plan, and the health plan is approved by that group, and it includes things like how are they going to handle PPE, are they going to take everybody's temperature before they come to class. We had an example this summer where we did in fact do that for the first 2 weeks. Every student had their temperature taken before they entered the lab space. But I think Rex is on our call, maybe, I'm not sure. Darren, do you know if Rex is on our call? He's not, but Rex is the chair, Rex Force, our Vice President for Health Sciences, is the chair of that health group. And a lot of that work is one-on-one based on the unique needs of that particular exception request. Our aeronautical program in CTE was an example of that this summer. The FAA required that these students complete their licensure requirements in lab prior to the end of the spring term, or the program was in jeopardy of losing its own licensure. So we were able to get those students back in the lab with a health plan and with appropriate PPE. Same thing is going to be true of all of the health science programs that need to have that face-to-face clinical experience. Certainly dental hygiene is an example of this. We have changed the way they're handling PPE in dental hygiene, for example. Traditionally, they certainly have had PPE already, but we've made sure that it is COVID ready, if you will. So those are examples, Ginny, of programs that will require exceptions.
Great, thank you. Next question, can we require students to wear masks in classes so that we can increase our room capacity?
It wouldn't increase the room capacity if we did require masks, because we would still be operating with 6 feet of social distancing based on the current guideline. So that it wouldn't actually increase our room capacity, but it is going to be strongly suggested that everyone in every public space wear a mask. We are still working on the details of that. We have a committee that's undertaking that review of what the mask or facial covering actually is where we're going now, as opposed to masks, but looking at facial coverings and how that will be managed in the fall for students and staff. And that group is making a recommendation. That's the employee group of the 4 groups that I talked about earlier. We have an employee group. They will be making a recommendation to admin council on that within a week, as I understand it. But on the instructional side of the house, we are anticipating that we will be providing students with facial coverings as part of orientation, and then hoping to do it at the door of these courses as well for the first couple of weeks of class at the minimum. But as I said, in terms of how that will function, we should know more about that committee's recommendations soon.
Thanks, Laura. Next question, will high flex classes allow students to participate entirely online if they prefer that?
There would be cases where students will participate entirely online if they fall into one of our high risk categories. Certainly we are urging anyone who falls into the high risk category, has an existing condition like diabetes or kidney disease. We have that posted as part of the rebound plan. Those conditions require that those individuals continue to isolate. And so some students will opt for entirely online as a result of falling into one of those populations. That's true for faculty as well. A faculty member that falls into one of those populations, we will move their classes online. And we'll do that regardless of these other considerations related to the fall schedule. That said, the way the class, outside of those individuals that are in a high risk category, the way the class decides to split itself up in the high flex model will be largely up to that section. And there will be, I anticipate, examples of students who say, I just want to be online with most of the term, but it may be that they need to come in for, if they're not in a high risk group, for a few face-to-face activities, for example, but we will allow our faculty members to negotiate that in those high flex environments. One of the things that I think we all have to do is make sure that we maintain a high level of flexibility going into the fall term, a high level of patience, because we haven't done this before. We are still in uncharted territory, and honestly, we don't know what we will be looking at for fall. But safety has to continue to be our #1 priority, with the #2 priority making sure that we're maintaining our instructional opportunity for students.
Thanks, Laura. Next question. What does freeze schedule for 3 weeks mean? Can you explain how this works?
We will be sending out communications related to the specifics of that, the tactics related to freezing the schedule. Traditionally, our schedule has been open for changes for fall, and it's been a fluid, changing environment over the course of the summer. We will freeze it for 3 weeks while we make these changes to it, because we can't manage changes that are coming in and room changes that we're trying to make at the same time. So we will work with the chairs and the deans to make sure that everybody understands when that 3-week freeze occurs. We anticipate it will take 3 weeks to make all of these changes to the fall term. It may be less, but we're trying to give the registrar's office as much time as possible, and it will be a big lift to change a lot of course sections to different rooms, and to manage the type changes that will be required, for example, for the high flex courses. So we will freeze the schedule for that 3-week period, which means that the university schedulers out in the units and the chairs and program directors won't be making changes during that time. We're trying to get a lot of the changes done right now that have come in for things like increasing caps or moving caps around if the course is cross-listed, moving seats to one or the other part of that cross list. We're trying to get all of those changes done this week so that we can move forward with freezing the schedule and make all of these other changes at the same time.
Okay, Laura, a couple follow-up questions about that. The first one, will students be able to enroll during the freeze?
I believe that they will. Darren, do you know? Cindy might know. Cindy Hill, are you on our call?
Yes, it is my understanding that students can continue to enroll while the course schedule is frozen to schedulers only.
So students could continue to register for the sections that are listed.
Yes, that is the case.
Just said that they'll be able to enroll throughout the process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, related question as well. Will we be able to start telling students now about the high flex option? Many students are expressing concerns about the virus and would like online option.
Yes, we are working on communications that will go out at the institutional level regarding our plans for fall. But yes, at the program and dean level, we can start talking about these various options that are available in the memo that's posted on the Academic Affairs website, and that we've shared in these slides that talks about the different class options that we can see for fall. All of those course options were already available. We already had online. We already had a mix of face-to-face and hybrid type courses. High Flex is new. It's the only one on the list that we have not traditionally had. The others are all courses that we've already been scheduling. But certainly you can start talking about that. We don't know what the course schedule will actually look like quite yet. And our deans are working really hard and our program directors to get that information at the program level about which courses they would like to be high flex at the upper division level. So it'll be a few weeks before we know exactly what the course schedule looks like, but it certainly is something you can talk about with students. That yes, these high flex options will be out there. And yes, there will be online courses as well. As I said, we already had 600 online sections that were fully online. We anticipate that number to expand to some extent at least. And so students will have various options, face-to-face, high flex, or online in the fall.
Okay. And a follow-up question about the freeze, will it be done now or will the freeze occur 3 weeks before classes start?
Oh, it will be done as soon as we can. Not today, but within the next, hopefully within the next week or so, we'll be ready to freeze the schedule and make these changes. Right now, as I mentioned, facilities is evaluating all our classroom spaces. We really need to have that analysis completed. And then our committee will look at all the existing class schedule and the information coming from deans and directors about the schedule changes they would like to see made. And we will crosswalk all of that over the next week or so and hopefully be ready to make our class changes within a couple of weeks and then have this entire process wrapped up hopefully by July 1. Certainly we're not doing this in August.
Thanks, Laura. And this same question came in a few times. Other institutions are ending fall at Thanksgiving break, with some having online finals after that. Any plans to do that at ISU?
Yes, we are planning to, and we'll be sending communication out about this as well. We are planning to complete the face-to-face instructional component of the 16-week term prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. And the details of that we are still working on, but that is our plan, is to complete that face-to-face instruction. And that doesn't mean that we won't have some courses that continue to meet face-to-face, because they'll have to. What we're trying to do with this is get the majority of our courses that meet face-to-face completed prior to Thanksgiving, and then have an online finals week for those sections after Thanksgiving. But we wouldn't be changing the calendar. We would be changing the way the instruction is managed, but not the date that grades are due, for example, and not the day that we roll the term. So those calendar items would stay the same. And we will be sending out additional communication about this. This is a very recent development that we have talked about as an admin council, and collectively decided that the right thing to do is to complete face-to-face instruction in the fall as quickly as possible, based on the public health guidance that we have received. But the details of how we are going to do that will roll out in the next week.
Thanks, Laura. Next question. Do we have a plan for fair and accurate student performance assessment?
I'm not sure if in the online environment or in general. Does it say? Sorry.
It doesn't say, but I'm assuming online, and maybe this person can give us some more details about what they're thinking. Let's move on to the next question. We'll come back.
Okay.
How will ISU enforce social distancing when our community treats it like a joke?
We are going to work very hard with student orientation, with faculty orientation. We are going to make sure that we're messaging the importance of our role as an institution in ensuring that we are meeting social distancing standards, that we are maintaining the health of our communities, that our priority has to be the health of our faculty and staff. That means that we will have to be flexible in terms of ongoing teleworking for our faculty. In many cases, it means that we will be flexible on events. We don't anticipate having large events until that's been cleared by the CDC. Now, understanding that there has been an easing of attention paid to this in some of our communities, we have a responsibility as an institution to ensure that we are adhering to those guidelines and that we provide that leadership for the communities themselves. We've been doing that. Certainly, we've received support from the State Board Office relative to the actions that we've been taking, and we anticipate that our communities will continue to be good citizens in that regard. But institutionally, we will make sure that we continue to emphasize the need and provide the opportunity, both the need and the opportunity for doing that.
Thanks, Laura. And we're going to jump back to that previous question. The question was, do we have a plan for fair and accurate student performance assessment? And it was referring to online, and that there was some cheating that was discovered this past term.
One of the challenges that we have in the spring is that our proctoring services were overwhelmed. They were completely overrun with requests, and in part because the entire nation went online. And our proctoring vendor just didn't have the capacity to handle all of our exams. And that will be rectified for fall, so we will have additional proctoring, professional proctoring options for online exams in the fall that we did not have in the spring. That does make a big difference. Those proctoring services do a nice job. It does reduce the amount of plagiarism that we see, and the amount of, it reduces opportunity, I will say, for cheating in those proctored sections. But we are also looking at a number of other online safeguards that we can give to faculty so that we can prevent the kinds of cheating that goes on in an online environment, which is different than it is in the face-to-face environment. Of course, we've always had cheating in the face-to-face environment. We're just more used to it, and it's smaller scale. It's not as technologically savvy, of course, in the face-to-face environment. So we are working on providing a number of tools to our faculty to assist with managing cheating and plagiarism in the face-to-face environment, as well as the online environment. I will say that we did not have, when we ran the analysis for the spring term, we did not have an increase in plagiarism or cheating as reported by faculty through the formal channel. Although we did have examples of that happening, we didn't have more of it. So I was surprised by that, but that's a good sign. And it may very well be that our faculty managed those situations more locally than they might have done otherwise because of the circumstances that we faced in the spring term. But we are conscious that we do see it nationally. And this is a national conversation among provosts about how to handle this. And we will see our proctoring vendors come up with more tools as well. And so we are optimistic that we'll be able to handle that more effectively in the fall than we did in the spring.
Thanks, Laura. Next question. When will the required textbooks for fall be posted online so students can figure out their finances before fall starts?
So those are always posted with the schedule. We have textbooks posted with every course. And so they're posted by course. And the student should, when at point of registration, be able to see those textbooks and the costs associated with them as well.
Thanks,
I
Laura.
don't think we have anybody from the registrar's office on the call, but they could certainly talk about the process for how that happens. Now that requires that the faculty and the department have submitted those textbook requests on time so that they can be posted with the course registration at the same time. So it's important that our faculty get their textbook orders in so that those postings can occur.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Next question, how will we ensure that faculty who will be at home for health reasons, how will we ensure that they are not forgotten?
That is such a good question, and one that is keeping me up at night actually right now, is how do we maintain our community during this time? We all feel disoriented and disconnected. And it's very normal, I think, after you sit in your living room for 9 weeks to feel, or 10 weeks, or whatever week we're in now. See, I don't even know. To feel disoriented and disconnected. And Academic Affairs is working with HR and to think about how do we manage those employee relationships and culture relationships in this new environment that we're functioning in. We have to, I think, anticipate that we will be in some type of modified environment until we have a different situation with COVID-19. That doesn't mean that we won't go somewhat back to normal. Some of us are coming back to the office already in a modified way. But those large gatherings that we traditionally have had that have allowed us to have community and camaraderie are going to be modified or not happen into the foreseeable future. So we need to think about how do we build community and reach out to our faculty who are at home and who are going to continue to be at home and work at home. And there are some, creative ideas about how to do that, how to reach out to them, how to visit them, drop off gifts and information from the institution, have drive-up meetings. I mean, there are some things that we're thinking about that are innovative that I think can make a difference. So we'll continue to work on that.
Thanks, Laura. Next question. What are the policies going to be in the fall for travel, such as going to high schools conferences?
I know that is under review with the employee committee. And I don't know if we have anybody here who can speak to that, where they are on the travel issue. I mean, certainly the state of Idaho is lifting its travel restrictions in phase 4, which would start in June, I believe, mid-June. So we would likely follow that Rebound Idaho plan for travel. But I don't know if we have anybody on the call who can confirm our travel plan.
Laura,
I'm not sure.
Laura,
Brian is not with us. Hi, Brian.
And without getting into the specifics of it, you're right that the phase 4 is going to once again allow non-essential travel to areas that don't have high community spread. And so the guidelines that are going out on the rebound plan will have a link to some of that information where if there were some areas that have high community spread, there might be some restrictions on travel there. But for area high schools in Southeast Idaho particularly, to this point, the reopening of non-essential travel will start in phase 4.
Great. Thanks, Brian, for being on the call.
Laura, are you encouraging departments and colleges to have informal activities like the grad school did with both faculty and with students?
I missed part of that, Ginny, the very beginning.
You bet. Are you encouraging departments and colleges to have informal activities like the grad school did with both faculty and with students?
Referring, I think, Adam, to your infamous "no one talks about what happened" event, but yes, we are encouraging departments and programs to have informal gatherings, to do this safely, of course, to follow the CDC guidelines in place at the time. If that means fewer than 10 people, and then we want fewer than 10 people at those. But we are encouraging our departments and our programs to have those kinds of gatherings for students. Certainly, by the time we get to August, we will know a lot more about where we are with this disease, where we are with the guidelines that are coming from the state and the federal government regarding how we handle it. But we are fully anticipating that those types of informal gatherings will be allowed, and certainly we are encouraging any kind of community support that we can. And in this time period, we need to make sure that we continue to reach out to students and that we reach out to each other. If that means, just having a very small informal gathering or a more formal one. But anything on that spectrum is supported at the institutional level, as long as it meets CDC requirements.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Next question. How would ISU deal with instructors and teaching assistants who cannot teach assigned courses due to family or health issues because the courses cannot be delivered online?
We are working through that. We do have some examples of that on campus, but we have been able to come up with solutions. We have been able to move parts of those sections online and work with other faculty in the unit to split the course. There are innovative ways to manage instruction in that way. And we haven't had to do that in the past, but we certainly have the capability of doing it. We have a team of faculty in every department and every program that has different expertise and different abilities and different exposure concerns. And as a result, we can use those teams to effectively deliver our courses. we just have usually had a one faculty member, one course model, like everybody in the world has. And I foresee us probably having more team talk courses as a result of some of these concerns going forward.
Okay. All right, Laura, we have 3 more questions. The next one is, I'm fine with the response and the plan so far, but has university leadership thought about at what point does the response not align with the threat? Is the CDC the only guide/reference?
No, it's not actually. We are using, of course, CDC guidelines as a baseline, but we have other recommendations as well. We have the American Medical School recommendations, which have been very detailed and very useful to us. We also have recommendations coming from other systems, other state systems that have done a lot, that have a lot more community spread, frankly, and have done a lot more analysis on the impacts of certain types of exposures and risk on campuses. So we're utilizing their data to help us make informed choices about what is really safe and what is not. So I would say CDC is just one example of data that we are utilizing to make decisions. We have some benefits in Idaho because we are not in, our state was not hard hit in the initial period here in the first 3 months. And that has given us some opportunities to evaluate how other states are handling these situations and how that's impacting their own community spread. And we will benefit from their work in that regard.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Will there be live performances at the Stevens Center, Goranson Hall, or Fraser Hall during the fall term?
That I do not have the answer to at this time. We are evaluating all of our performance, all of our events relative to the fall, and that is a fluid situation, I will say. We just don't know right now what will happen with big events in the fall. We know that most rebound plans nationally are easing up on restrictions for groups under 50. It's beginning in July, and certainly that is what's happening in Idaho for the rebound plan in June. But in terms of those large gatherings, we just at this point are not in a position to say what will happen, but we should know more in the next month or so.
Thanks, Laura. Last question, and then we'll wrap things up. The university COVID website says we are in stage 2. Is the plan to still have 2 weeks between stages as appeared in the original plan?
As I understand it, that is correct. That we are planning on having the 2 weeks in between. Darren, can you provide some clarity on that?
Yeah, so right now what we're following is the governor's guidance on the staging. And as we move forward, there is a 2-week period between each. In July, we should be, or in June 15th and 14th, we should be getting stage 3, which will allow everyone to return to work within a social distance atmosphere. And then stage 4 is full employment back at work without, but only if the risks continue at the stage that they're at now, as far as the number of individuals who are receive the disease or have it spread to their community. In addition, if we see any type of change to the governor's office, they'll also adjust our staging.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Laura, Lynn is saying that we have 3 concerts on the quads this summer, and the first one is scheduled for the end of June. I imagine that will be with physical distancing.
Lynn, do you want to talk about those? She might not be able to. She might not have audio, but we are planning, those are examples of events that I think can be very helpful to our students, and they will be socially distanced and outside. So that gives us more options. I think in the fall, certainly we will see more outside events as well, because it does give us more choices for how we handle the venue and how we handle distancing. So you can anticipate seeing more of those outside type events occur. All right, I'm hearing that we don't have any other questions. So again, I just want to thank you for spending this time. I know that faculty are off contract. We have a few faculty on the call, and I appreciate your spending time with us today. I know that we can't answer all of the questions that you have, and that is frustrating. It's frustrating not to know exactly what will happen for fall. It's also frustrating to think that we may not know all of those answers, even in the next month. But I can assure you that we have committees that are working very hard to get those answers, and that we will make all of the decisions that we can now so that we can plan effectively. And then of course, sometimes those are subject to change. It may be that we get to fall and the risk is much lower for whatever reason. If that's the case, then we certainly would back off on some of these social distancing requirements in our sections, because they will be a burden on the campus. And I certainly understand that everyone is sacrificing. I know we have instituted furloughs. Those will be a sacrifice. The course scheduling is a sacrifice for our faculty who are working on the schedule, and for program directors and chairs, because it is different and it is more work. And it's certainly an impact in enrollment management as well. So it is above all a very frustrating time not to know exactly what to expect. But you can count on these elements, that we will have these options in this schedule, and that we will have a mix of options for students, and that if a faculty member is in a high-risk group, they will not be required to be face-to-face. So those are the types of messages that we can convey, that we are committed to, that we know will happen. And with that, I think we have done such a good job as a community to support one another. I would request that you continue to take care of yourselves. That's critically important right now. It's critically important to not be on Zoom calls for 10 hours a day. We know that is not healthy. I think we've all experienced it now, and we should not be doing that. We need a time away from Zoom, and we need time away to think, because this is going to require us all to be innovative and creative, and creativity does not happen on a schedule. So we do need that time to recharge, and I want to convey to you all to not feel at all concerned or guilty about taking time off. It's really important that you do it. And with that, I want to thank you all again for your hard work. I don't know that we've ever worked harder as a campus collectively, or put in more hours. I got a very nice note from our executive director of the state board office this week, that thanking us for our hard work and thanking us for our leadership in the state in supporting our students. And so I told him, and I'm telling you, that that's all of you that's doing that. So I will end on that. And if you have any other questions, you can, of course, email me, or hopefully by August, drop in to the office. So we'll see you all soon. Thanks, Jenny, for your help. Bye, everyone.